Hey, hello there. Hello, John. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm doing well, and I hope you're doing well too with all the unusual things going on. Our family is all well and healthy, so I'm glad to say that. I hope the same is true for you.
Oh, amen. It is. It is. It is. And
Good.
I'd like to welcome everyone. This is a Columbus chapter interview and this week we're interviewing John Hanson, and he is an entrepreneur, author, coach, speaker of 7 Ways Menu.
That's right.
I got it.
You got it.
Do you have your book in front of you? Because I'm
I knew you would ask, and so there it is. Wow, your customer 7 ways to world-class service. It's available on Amazon.
amazing. Well, that's a timely subject for today. We'll get back to that later. During this coronavirus, everyone's needing work from home. Everyone is needing to come with new ways of transitioning
Right?
and dealing with customers and helping their own businesses along. So we'll get back to that on how you can help them. How's that?
Absolutely. That sounds great.
Okay, so John, in the beginning, we have a quiz. I want all of you to take down pencil and paper as you're watching this. And at the end of the interview, John will reveal the answer.
Aha.
Okay? So you have to listen closely to the interview to find these answers. What is one unique thing about John Hanson that nobody would guess? A, half Canadian, like a
A.
0.5, I guess. Not one broken bone in his whole entire life. C, ordained pastor. D, visited the crossed swords in Baghdad or Iraq. Or E, all four. So A is half Canadian. B, not one broken bone in his whole entire life. C, ordained pastor. D, visited the cross swords in Baghdad, Iraq. Or E, all of the above. So wait till the end of the interview and see if you're right. So John, let's begin. You've written the book and you have quite a lot of experience, but really the person behind their book and behind their experience is often really more important. The character and who they are in the background drop, as we were discussing earlier, really makes up an individual and person. So can you tell me a little bit about your family and what's going on? Feel comfortable in anything you want to share or?
Sure. So we live outside of Columbus in a rapidly growing area of greater Marysville, Ohio. Been married since 2003, so now 17 years to the same woman. And we have 7 children, 3 of whom are adopted, and 2 of those 3 have special needs. So if I told you that we had a full idea of what we were getting into, then we probably wouldn't have done it in the first place. So the learning curve was quite steep. I use the rubber band analogy where our family and our marriage and our finances and all those things were stretched, but not to the point of breaking. They stretched and then propelled us into, I would say, a greater understanding, greater compassion, greater empathy than I had before for either people who adopted or just the idea of, I don't know someone's story until I ask or they're willing to share it. So we're all very good about putting our best foot forward, and rightly so. We don't want to be a mess in public, but we really don't have an idea what's going on behind the scenes in someone's life unless we ask or they're willing to share. And so during that time of international adoption of children with special needs, on top of financial issues of underemployment, on top of relationships spiritually going south unexpectedly, there was a lot of pressure kind of all at once. But those were all things beyond our control. And what was fascinating about the whole story was we agreed to adopt 2 special needs children from Bulgaria in 2013, August 2013. I remember the date so clearly because just a couple weeks later, after we committed to the children, I was told by Chase, you're not going to have a job in 90 days. So the adoption reimbursement from Chase was half the cost, tens of thousands of dollars. I thought, I don't think I can find another job that's going to pay that much more. So I tried my darndest to stay with Chase along with the hundreds of other people who were getting cut. And that didn't work. And so I ended up taking another role within Chase that was almost half less in pay to keep the adoption reimbursement. And we didn't feel it was right to cancel on the kids. They would never know the difference, but we just felt we committed to this, so we're going to go through with it. And that just introduced a lot of new stresses along with any time you adopt. It's so rare that everything goes just smoothly from start to finish. And just like life, they can tell you the theory of how it's going to be, but until you're experiencing it, it's totally different than what the textbooks say. You can go through the courses of this is what you're going to experience as a family or in your marriage, and right, understand, yeah, it's going to be difficult, but you really don't understand how difficult on top of all those other things happening in your life. But it was all set up for us so that having gotten through that, having experienced that, it gave us fresh eyes to see, because before that, I had a few opinions that were, well, they weren't very sympathetic. One was, if you want a better job, you just go out and get one. Well, I found out that's not always the case. There are people that are great employees and they just can't get a good opportunity.
That's right.
Not because of them. I don't know how many times I got interviews that said, you were a great candidate, had a great interview, but we decided to go with somebody else. You know, like,
yeah, our family knows that personally all too well. My husband's been through that. So we definitely understand. So keep going.
Yeah, and that and people's story. You know, you really don't know someone's story, and they're not likely to break down in front of everybody and tell you all that's going on in their life that's difficult. But the idea that most people's lives are as easy as it seems,
right.
whether the church pew on Sunday or out shopping, or even when you're out having a good time with friends, they're not necessarily just going to lay it out to you of, you know, our life is really hard right now. Our marriage is suffering right now. Our kids aren't doing well right now. Financially, we are hurting right now. People just aren't going to tell you that right off the bat. And what especially makes that possible is asking questions, being empathetic, having a listening ear, and asking well-worded questions, not to pry, not to dig, but really to show that you care. Because once people understand that you care, then they feel like, I can trust this person to share. And I had that quite often through my life, because I'm very empathetic naturally, that people quickly trust me. And so I have the opportunity to hear people's stories. And now having this peace in my life, now I have the ability to have a greater empathy where not only do I want to hear their stories, but I want to encourage them and just be a listening ear sometimes.
Wow, that's good advice for all of us. We all need to be that good listening ear. And I worked in hospice with nurses. And I remember one nurse saying one time that when we get a hospice patient near the end of the life, and they were dealing with, you know, men that they knew had been abusive and it alienated their families. Now he's dying alone. All kinds of those hardship. And I remember one nurse said, you know, we get a snapshot of their life. And that's all we know. We don't know all the past.
Right.
We get a snapshot right now, and we're going to treat them with value, worth, dignity, love, and compassion, and move on. And that's how we are really in life. We get a snapshot of individuals. And partly why I started these Zoom meetings for the Columbus chapter of Igniting Souls was so that we could get to know one another, even once we can gather in person, face to face, around a restaurant table someplace again. We still can't hear all the fullness of each other's stories.
Right.
And so my hope and aim for all those listening, if you haven't been asked to be interviewed, don't worry about it. You can message me, side message me, say, I'd love to be interviewed. And you don't even need to have written your book yet. You don't even need to be starting your business yet. You're part of the tribe. You're part of the chapter. Your life counts, and you have a lot to say and offer to us.
Yes.
And so John's bringing up a really good point. So I promised them we would give clues to your icebreaker in here.
Okay.
So to move up quickly to the essence of what you would like to share. I'm fascinated by wowing your customers. We all sell, whether we're salesmen or not. We all have to market ourselves. We all have customers, whether it's our friends or making friends, so it is all a part of life. So I do want to hear that, but a little bit of your background when, I'm going to commend him in front of everyone, but when he gave me his resume, he said he had 25 years experience in success in customer facing roles. And I'm going, what? He's not that old. I was starting to calculate backwards in years.
What, did you start from when you were born? Like,
yeah, really. Seriously. So we're not going to discuss his age, but seems like you did a lot in your younger years. And I noticed, I want to say thank you for serving in our military.
Yeah.
And how did those form and shape you as an individual? And where were you, or what did you do, or if you can tell us?
Sure. Yeah, it started off actually in Christian camping, retreat and retreat centers, riding stables. Started off back as soon as I graduated from high school. I went through a discipleship program at a Christian ranch in Western PA, and that brought me over to Central Ohio in '95. So we've been connected with Central Ohio, my wife and I, both from '95 till now. And there was a period of 8 years where I was down in Northern Kentucky helping with a startup for a Christian ranch down there, and then just stayed in the area for 7 years. That's where I became involved in Christian ministry. I was a worship leader, a deacon, and then ordained, all in Northern Kentucky, and had a couple years in a rural Baptist church before coming back up to Central Ohio in '05 for a summer position, and then just stayed in the area since then. So we've had long-standing relationships in the Central Ohio area since '95, which is like 25 years, right? 25 years now. And when I first came out to the area, just to date things a little bit, right? Our family's coming from Western New York out to this place for the first time, and all you've got are phone booths and yellow pages, believe it or not, right?
Right.
So we were told that this place is in Zanesfield. Well, we misunderstood and thought it was Zanesville. Now, if you know the of Ohio, Zanesville and Zanesfield, you can't even find Zanesfield on a map, for one. For two, Zanesville is on the opposite side, a good 2 hours to the east of Columbus.
Oh, yes.
So things were not matching up with the address, and that's where I stopped at a phone booth and called the place and said, "We're not finding this." Oh, so they said, we're in Zanesfield. We're out past Marysville. Well, you could find that on a map back then.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Oh, you've got another 2.5, 3 hours to go."
I bet I know the name of that farm.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Marvin Valley?
Marvin Valley Farm, yep.
Okay, I took my kids there probably around the same time when you were there. Seriously.
Yeah, I was 95 to 97. I was there, full-time staff there.
Okay.
And I say my wife followed me out. She says she's just coming out with a friend, but I say it's because she's following me out. We didn't actually get married until 2003, and we started dating in 2002, but we'd known each other since '93. So we'd known each other almost 10 years by the time we started dating. Got engaged, got married. So it was through Christian camping that we got to know each other. And then it was through Christian camping that we had our kind of, where she came back to Marvin Valley, I was working there. And that's where I started driving up every weekend to visit her while I was still busy with the church down in Northern Kentucky. So they said I was one really tired guy. Like I was missing words. I'd never done that before, and messing up on the songs. They said, "This guy's obviously," they thought I was in love. Really, I was just dead tired because I'd been driving. Go up there, I just never wanted to leave.
I like the love excuse better.
I know. It sounds more romantic, but it's not.
That's another book. That's another book.
I'm sure that was part of it. But, when you're leaving on the wee hours of Sunday morning to drive back down to Northern Kentucky, and service starts or Sunday school starts at 9 a.m., you're not getting much sleep, if any.
No.
I remember one time I was driving down 68. I was driving down 75. And I thought, I have never been on this part of 75 before in Dayton, rather than taking 675 around.
Right.
Because I fell asleep long enough to miss the exit. So I missed the 675 exit, And I know this is a terrible story. Kids, don't do this. If you're tired, pull over and take a nap. Anyways, I'm driving into Dayton. I don't remember this part of 75 at all. And sure enough, then I connect with 75 as I was coming down. And I thought, oh, so I missed. And that's 68 into 75. It's because I missed it. But that's just something that I learned.
Wow, I was expecting you to say you landed in Indiana.
If I hadn't been careful, I would have kept going on 70. Would have ended up in Indiana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Wow. So, when were you in the military? What? Because that all makes you who you are today.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that the military part came in later in my life. I was 32 when I enlisted in the Ohio Army National Guard. So here I am going to Georgia in the summer to do training in the summers, often when young recruits sign up, they do their basic training, then they go back for their senior year of high school and then go back for their follow-up training after they graduate. So I'm there in the heat of, the summer in Georgia at Fort Benning with 17-year-olds and myself, 32-year-old. So to say that there was a difference in the maturity level, oh my gosh, I learned patience the hard way. That's the only way you learn it, right? So one of the things that I learned was young people, they actually aren't able to stand still and not talk for longer than a minute or two, at least when I went into training in 2008. We'd be in formation, all of us, and all you got to do is stand there and be quiet. That's all you got to do, right? They couldn't do it. Occasionally, they couldn't even do it when the drill sergeant was standing up there. So I got lots of exercise, and not from my own fault. But it was really good because I was told basic training is going to be the most difficult thing in your life. And up until international adoption with special needs, it was. There was nothing in my life that was as difficult as that. To be away from family, to be there in the summer in Georgia, to be obviously put under stress, to see how you handle that. And then being broken down from a myself idea to a unit, that was easily, I had already been in ministry at that point, and I already been in leadership at that point. So that was easy for me to do, but it wasn't easy for the younger soldiers to do.
Right.
So that experience, even deployment, I was told by experienced soldiers, deployment's going to be easier than basic. I thought, how can that be easier? I'm going over to the Middle East, that can't be easier. It was easier. And I actually talked to my family more when I was overseas than I did when I was in training, because I had more liberties when I was deployed than I did while I was in training. So I was able to stay connected with them almost on a daily basis, even though I was on the other side of the world. But it helped me give fresh perspective, what to be grateful for, how some people live, and then an idea of what a stressful day looks like and feels like compared to what an everyday life day feels like. Over in Iraq, we provided localized warning for rocket and mortar attacks on the military bases. And so our job was to we'd be monitoring the radars, 8 to 12 hour shifts. And we had to decide in a 15 to 20 second window if something was a legitimate threat we needed to warn for, or something that was just a bird or a bullet. They actually shoot a lot for no reason over there, to determine which it was. And it was our job to decide that in a split seconds, so that we could give them at least 10, 15 seconds to get under cover if it was real. The flip side of that is you don't want to warn too often for stuff that's not real and then them not care about getting under cover. So it would go from 7 hours of just sheer boredom with nothing to, whoop, here come the radars, and you got to make a split-second decision about, is this real or not? And if it is real, then you got to warn for it. You got to set up a report to headquarters in 30 minutes. So there was a lot of sudden stress and deadlines. Having that, then going to a job that was highly stressful in the corporate world with Chase as a loan processor. This was in 2012 then, that refinance rates were in the 3s. So everybody was refinancing their loan. They were just swamped with files. High turnover, high stress. But I was able to work through that because I had something to compare it to. I was able to often just take a deep breath and say, nobody dies. Next thing, let's do the very best job. So I think having those stress coping skills was very helpful, and it enabled me to keep my ability to serve the customers well, but also to encourage my team, because I could see that they were stressed and tired and overworked. And I made it a priority to support my management, to support my team, and to take the very best care of my customers.
Mhm.
And I was able to do that, I think, largely because of being strongly empathetic and having those stress coping skills.
Wow. Yeah, that would. That would. It's amazing how our past prepares us for our future almost all the time.
Yes.
I had it say one friend of mine going through a very difficult time, and we were too at the time. And she said, "Marrying God doesn't waste sorrows."
Mm.
So, and he hasn't. In other words, you don't like to hear it, that what you're going through, tough times, we're all going through this coronavirus. I know many of you own your own businesses. You've been
Right.
scrambling, juggling so many things. And yet, so we don't take things lightly. And I'm trying to think what my main key was, is that everything that we've been prepared like in the past, so I don't take it lightly, the things. The one Bible verse I don't like is count it all joy, yeah, when you encounter various trials. But you know that your faith will produce character, your character, the James passage. I never liked it. But actually, it really is true. Nothing is wasted. And so you've been able to recognize that obviously early on and embrace everything, and then see what the strengths of your past, how you've been led in the past have led you to the future, and even including 7 children with 2 high needs, right?
Right. Right.
2 high need children, and your wife deserves a medal. So,
oh my gosh, she deserves so many medals. Yes, yeah, she didn't know what she was signing up for first when she married me, and then second when we adopted children with special needs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, a very stretching time for her as well. And then she's an extrovert, so then to have this coronavirus on top of it, I mean, it's not just cabin fever; it's like cabin fever verging insanity, because mm-hmm. for someone who's an extrovert, who wants to be out and in relationships and doing purpose-filled activities, mm-hmm. it is really frustrating to be stuck, to be caged, essentially. It is. So that's been the most difficult thing for her. Mm-hmm. Whereas me, I'm sort of a hybrid, where I have enough things to do, and I get energy being around people, mm-hmm. but I also really enjoy being plugged into academic and pursuits where it's just me and a computer. So it doesn't affect me like it does her. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that are going to be watching this that are one way or the other, or kind of in the middle. It has different effects on different people. And then you add the stress of, well, if you are an entrepreneur or a small business owner, no matter what your personality type is, if you have that stress going on, that's typically even more of a concern as a provider for your family. That adds an additional layer of stress. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad to see. I didn't hear you say that you got injured anywhere in your deployment. So no injuries.
All my fingers and toes. That's right.
Okay. Okay.
No close calls. Thank goodness.
That was a hint, folks, on the quiz.
I was having a Zoom. No, it wasn't Zoom. It was Skype. I was having a Skype call with my wife, and in the background, she heard the alarms go off, and I stopped talking. She's like, "Shouldn't you be getting under cover?" It's like, waiting to hear the boom, because you could tell how far away it is if the boom goes off. And I said, no, it's fine. So she was freaking out on the other line, like, shouldn't you be like under a bunker or something? I'm like, no, let's just wait for it for a second. Because I could tell by the alarms how far away the alarm tower was.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so I was told that. I was told, at first you're going to wake up every single one, go running for that bunker. And I did. And after a while, they said, no, we'll just roll over and go back to sleep. And I thought, I will never do that. If that alarm goes off, I'm getting out of bed and I am running for that bunker. You know what? They were right. About a month in, I'm like, if it's my day, it's my day. I'm going back to bed. It's amazing how sleep is more important than running for a bunker.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, my goodness. Well, you've taken all of this, and you had the privilege of working for a Fortune 100 company, which is amazing. And you have had a lot of experience in customer service. So, in your book, we're going to segue over to your book, and wow your customers, 7 ways to world-class service. Um, I'm so impressed. You've already been speaking. You've already have spoken internationally, I believe.
I've had
Um,
opportunity to do that virtually. I'm applying. Obviously, that got put on hold because of the coronavirus. But yeah, I've been applying to speak overseas and hope that that will come back online later this year.
uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're sold out, your credentials are amazing. So in your book, you've been able to put all of your life experience and um, heart really into helping companies with customer service. That is such a niche, and one that I wouldn't want to do. I could never do a call service. Don't nail me down to a desk in a call service. I was a sample lady one time, lasted one day because I couldn't stay in my little 4-foot arena, my 2-foot square arena.
Oh,
I didn't mind meeting the people. It was staying put. Uh, so I, and so that is so unique, but it transcends any sector in society, whether you're a government worker, entrepreneur, in a huge corporation, whether you're CEO, whether you're upstart, everyone has a service or product in which they feel will benefit others.
mm-hmm.
And whether it's making widgets or writing books and writing plays and movie scripts, film producer, everyone has to serve others. Yeah, and those others would be our customers. So what would you like to share with the other chapter members that might help them? Some of them aren't with BAE where we learn a lot. Others have just started Author Academy Elite. Others have come in because they attended the conference. So we have chapter members all over from all faiths, all backgrounds. And what are some of the key points where any one of us could pick up your book and gain real insight from that we could apply in our own lives?
That's a great question. And the book is set up more for my clarity of mind as I'm sharing with people. But the chapters, there's 7 chapters, obviously, with the 7 ways. Wow them is how it's set up, WOWTHEM. So winning attitude, organization, word choice, teamwork, humor, empathy, and providing more. Those are the 7 ways. Of those 7, and the reason I call it 7 ways menu is because rather than giving people a recipe of saying you need to follow this one, and then this one, and then this one, I say it's like a menu. When you sit down, you can't eat all of it. And if you could, that wouldn't be good for you. In order for it to be digestible, for you to be able to apply it, you need to pick the ones that resonate with you and then try those, apply those, and as they work, then add more. And so I would say of those 7, there's 2 that I think that are just absolutely critical that as I talk with people around the world about this, people are people no matter what country they're in. But if you can start with 2 things out of those 7, those would be the ones that I'd say if you just want to come in and get full and then move on, where you want to start with something that fills you up, that has some meat to it. I would, unless you're vegan, that has some calories to it. I would say is a winning attitude. That's something that I can directly control. And I don't mean winning like coming in first. That's actually the subject of my book coming out next year about the actual most healthy definition for winning. Winning Secrets, 7 Ways to a Highly Successful Life. That's the book I'm working on now that's going to be released next year.
Did you say life or wife?
Life.
Okay.
That would be odd coming from me, but I guess I could do that. Yeah, so to a highly successful life. And that's the working title. I haven't nailed down the title, but interviewed some fascinating people and their stories. But a winning attitude is something that we can directly control. We can directly contribute to. That makes a great difference on how we take care of our customers. But the second one that I think is just as equally important is empathy, the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And while you may not be naturally empathetic like I was, or some people are at those customer service type roles, work very well for people who are strongly empathetic. You can still consciously be trained in how do I place myself in their situation.
Mm-hmm.
We're all customers, right? So we all know how we would like to be treated in a transaction. So all we really need to do is deflect that emotion that's being directed not really at us, but with the issue, and then refocus that back on, okay, hear them, acknowledge that, and then let's focus on the solution. How can I help them? Empathy enables you to get to the solution sooner while hearing and acknowledging their emotional need or frustration or concern. We all have those as customers. So I think those two are the most important ones to start with.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sort of goes with maybe a little more in depth than what we've been taught through the Author Academy Lead and BAE programs, that it's really about serving and adding value to others. So really gaining the empathetic, right?
Right.
Empathy, being able to maybe learn more how to think like the other person thinks and feels, should enable all of us then to work out our value statements, our mission statements, our courses, our next books, to be able to write with them in view.
Absolutely.
Ourselves in view.
Yeah, if you're not able to help them identify what you're there to solve, then you're not going to be able to provide that solution, even if you've got a great one. Mm-hmm. If you're not helping them identify, or you're not connecting with them where they may already know what their issue is, but if you're not presenting, hey, I have an idea that could help you, and that's where the part of engaging and identifying where someone is empathetically, then you know the best way to frame your solution. Otherwise, it could be kind of like the shotgun effect where you're just trying to blast everybody. We know that that kind of messaging is not as effective as one that's tailored to who your ideal audience is that you want to serve. Mm-hmm. So empathy helps put yourself in their shoes and say, if I was in their position, or I've already been in their position, how would I be most receptive to someone saying, here's a book on customer experience, on customer service. Well, if you're in a frontline role, or you're in leadership of people in a frontline role, I need to make sure that my messaging is tailored to why would they want to read this book? How is this book going to help them? Mm-hmm. Because that's ultimately what I want to do. But if I'm not connecting the dots for them as to how it will do that, then to them it can be just another advertising, another pitch, another something they're just not interested in, rather than meeting a specific need they actually have.
Right. Wow. Then what's your number two? We'll cover two of them this time around.
Number two?
Yeah. You said you had two points. So there are two things.
Oh, winning attitude and empathy. Those are two. So winning attitude is the very first chapter, and empathy is the 6th chapter of the book. Those two things is where I would start. Because if you have what you can control, and then you also have the customer in mind, you talked about serving or adding value. If you have those two things, the other ones are things that can be added. But if you don't have a great attitude to start with, mm-hmm. doesn't matter what tools you add to your toolkit. If you don't have a positive, strong attitude, I'm going to focus on the solution and work towards that, then it's not going to go nearly as far. And if you're not empathetic and not working to put yourself to understand where somebody else is coming from, mm-hmm. then it's always going to feel like your message is being pushed at them as opposed to being tailored so they want to receive it anyways.
Mm-hmm. So in other terms, if we always come prepared to show up, filled up, and with the idea of serving others, valuing others more, then those two anchors will jumpstart all the other ways
I believe so.
You discuss in your book, like hinge. So if someone is having trouble with, I know authors, I went through times of struggling with writing my book, like who am I? How dare I write this book? Right. Who am I? Now I'm working on my courses. So who am I to coach? Although I've been naturally doing it all my life. Right. But we go through this. So someone really struggles, and I do know there's some people in our chapter that have been struggling just through life, through all kinds of things. What one nugget can you give and leave with us? Because I'm looking at the clock here. That would really help jumpstart them, because it's one thing to say have a winning attitude, but how does an individual really gain one, and where do they start to gain one?
It's like you set up perfectly, Marion, the segue into my book for next year. So I'll give everybody a little bit of a sneak peek. The way is you have to not redefine, you have to use the correct definition for what winning actually is. We traditionally go with the very first meaning. I actually found it from the dictionary, discovered it in my hardcover, bright red Webster's Dictionary. I promised myself when I started writing, Marion, that if I ever came across a word that I thought could be rich in meaning, I'd open the dictionary and find out what does it really mean. Not go with what I think it means or what somebody else said, but read it for myself. And I have done that so many times, and it's inspired one book idea after another. But this one on winning, we all think we know what the word win means, and it does mean coming in first, blue ribbon, excelling in competition. That's the first definition, but there are other definitions after that. And so it was the second definition that just stopped my world in its tracks. When I read that, it was one word, all caps. When I read that, I stopped breathing for a minute. The impact hit me all at once, and that's where I got the idea for the book I'm working on now. And it was one word, all caps, success. If your definition of winning is coming in first, most, fastest, richest, best, all that, the most, number one. And America does really well at glorifying number one. The problem is life doesn't work that way. And worst of all, if you go with that, being number one means that you're winning. And if you're not number one and you're number two, you're quote unquote losing, then you will never win at life. It's an unhealthy definition. And unfortunately, people apply that wrong label through well-meaning things like school, parenting, ourselves, our expectations, business, sports, all these areas where we're driven to give our best. Well, what if our best doesn't come in first? Does that mean we lost? No. I would say to the people that are writing and that are like, I'm stuck. It was on a wall of a company when I did industrial automation sales. It was in their conference room. There's just a little plaque that I remember. It's etched in my mind. It said, progress is the goal, not perfection. If the end goal is what you focus on, you need to have that written down so you're working towards something. But the daily measure of whether you're winning or not at life is, did you progress? I don't care if you wrote one sentence or if you wrote one chapter. Did you progress more today than you did where you were yesterday? Then you're winning. You are winning at life. The vast majority of people in life are winning because they're making right choices. They're succeeding. They're doing things that work. It's just that we all celebrate the 12th inch of life where you've arrived and everybody knows you've arrived, but they don't see all the centimeters or millimeters of progress along the way to that 12th inch. That's the winning at life. Believe it or not, the opposite of winning is not failure, Marion. The opposite of winning is giving up. Failure is one of those key things we have to learn what doesn't work. Nobody is faulted that's gotten to that 12th inch. Thomas Edison, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, you name these famous people, they didn't start off where they were as being famous on day one. They had to go through all those ups and downs and struggles and learning curves to get to where everybody knows who they are. So part of the process of winning is the journey itself. If they're in that journey and they're doing one step at a time and they're progressing, they're different, they've matured, they've accomplished things now more than where they were 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years ago, then they are winning hugely at life. And they need to stop comparing themselves. Renee Vidor has a great book on that. They need to stop comparing themselves to somebody else, because the only measurement is themselves today compared to themselves yesterday. If you've progressed, you're winning at life.
Beautifully said. It's like taking the next best step.
Yes, I love that scene from Carrie. Yes.
Oh yeah, that topic from last year's conference, and I guess it's a shameless spiel for everyone to attend the conference this year.
It'll change your life.
It will. I'm not making it up. I'm not one prone to go to, I've been to a lot of conferences and
Me too.
hip hip hooray conferences, and
Yeah.
this is off the charts. But the last year's time was take the next best step, and that has really helped me, and I've been able to pass it on to others. So
Yes.
it's what you said, it's a progress. We're all in this together. We're all going to be moving through. I'm going to say, bring it right back to this day and age in our country. It's going to take a while. Beyond my understanding, it's why it's going to take a while to get us all released out on the streets again, like we were. But in the meantime, we can all be taking steps. So if it's a mother at home with tons of children running around, because now they're not being sent off to school and now you're having to homeschool them or whatever.
Yeah.
But you have a book you want to write, you need to be doing this. Even half an hour at the typewriter, half an hour in a journal, whatever time you can take, you get an idea, put it in the phone.
Yes.
Google, the phone has a Google Speak availability apparently.
Yes.
Where Google will actually type into text your book. I think some authors, AE authors, have already written their books that way. So be of good cheer, everyone out there. You're stretched to the max, perhaps, or maybe you're sitting back turning your thumbs because unfortunately you got laid off from work and you have no work. Or maybe now you're working from home, a different scenario. Just pause. Take that winning attitude that yes, you can, the winning attitude, the attitude that you're going to make it. There's hope at the end. And then think of how your message is important for others to hear.
Yes.
And if all you have is even 15 minutes a day to devote to it, do it.
Yep.
And then do the next day and do the next day. I think in the end, you'll have your product, you'll have your service, you'll have the next step in your business, your next phase, your next chapter, maybe a whole section of your book written in no time at all. So
that's right.
John, this has been a thrill and a pleasure, but I need to ask you one more thing. I should have asked this in the beginning.
Okay.
So did you ever live in Canada?
No, I did not ever live in Canada. But my mother is Canadian by birth and has dual citizenship in the U.S. and Canada. And so I was born in the U.S., so obviously I'm a full U.S. citizen, but blood-wise, I'm half Canadian.
Aha. Okay, yeah. So for those taking that quiz, that was very, very important. Okay. Listen, John and I could spend hours. He needs to get going, so do I, and so do all of you. This has been a pleasure. The time has flown, John. Thank you so much for what you're giving out to others in the tribe and in your life and those around you. And we pray the best for you. And I think we need to have the answers to the big quiz.
It's E, all of the above. That's right. So all four of those are actually true of me.
Okay, he's half Canadian.
Yes.
Not one broken bone in your whole life.
Not once.
Ordained pastor at a young age. Visited the cross swords in Baghdad, Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the above and more. So take time to get to know this guy. Get his book. Bless him and encourage him. And some of you may want to hook up and actually collaborate together. A number of you have similar books, similar heart in business and entrepreneurship. So I encourage you all to team together. And bless you, John. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Marion. It was a blast.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.